Dave Smith Unleashed, brought to you by MTS Transportations. And mention the Dave Smith Unleashed podcast and get 20% off on your next shipment for all your shipping, trucking, and freight needs. There's only one business to call, and that's MTS Transportations at 800-640-6873. MTS Transportations, 800-640-6873. Welcome back to another edition of Dave Smith Unleashed, talking about everything in the world of sports and non-sports. You know, speaking of sports, what a dry time it is right now, huh? There, over the last month, there is absolutely nothing. You just can't wait for football season to start. College football and the NFL right around the corner, the NBA Finals in it. I guess if you like watching baseball, you have something, but this is a dry time. So I've been resorting to, I watched Sneaky Pete the other night, and the Gilded Age and the Nick. I've been desperately trying to find good series to watch. I did a Hogan's Heroes marathon the other night, too, so thank God football season is coming up. And also, thankfully, here on Dave Smith Unleashed, coming in for another appearance, and he's a longtime guest on my radio shows as well, a board member of NAGA, Native American Guardians Association, and also now working with Save Our Native Souls, Sons, S-O-N-S, and boy, the whole Washington Redskins, Cleveland Indians narrative has been in the news again, and it looks like something could actually be happening now. So let's bring on the best person we can get to talk about all this, a member of the Kiowa Nation tribe, and a beloved guest of the show, the great Billy Dieckman. Billy, thanks for joining us again.
Thank you. It's an honor.
Well, first of all, you know, you talked about how NAGA sued the Washington Redskins /Commanders /football team organization, trying to get the name Redskins back. And, you know, it looked like, well, who knows? Maybe you'll get a little bit of a settlement. Maybe something will happen. But now over the last couple of weeks, you know, President Trump said the name should be changed back to Redskins, and the Cleveland Guardians should change their name back to Indians. So could this actually happen now? It seems like that Josh Harris and David Blitzer, the owners of the Commanders, are starting to feel a little pressure now, and Trump is actually threatening to cut off funds for the new stadium since it's going to be built on federal land. So what I thought could never happen, do you think there's a chance now we could see the Washington Redskins again?
There's certainly movement behind the curtain, and our fight for the name. Actually, I have to address this. NAGA, when they sued the Redskins organization, or Commanders organization as it is now, that was over a slander. Like somebody in the organization claimed that the Native American Guardian Association were fake Indians. They weren't even Indian, and so that's what that happened there. However, the fight, we've never given up the fight for the name as well. But yeah, there's actually some movement, and our fight has actually gained a lot of traction thanks to President Trump and his words and his backing. Unlike number 44, who absolutely tried to destroy and dismantle the Redskins name.
People are always surprised that an overwhelming majority of Native Americans, some polls as high as 90%, they love the name Redskins. They feel a tremendous source of honor and pride with that name, and they never wanted Washington to change it in the first place. So, and I think a lot of people aren't aware that that term has nothing to do with skin color. It was about red war paint that the warriors would put on before a battle. It was sacred. It was an honor. It denoted courage and honor and the bravery on the battlefield. It really has nothing to do with skin color. So kind of explain why so many Native American people loved that Redskins name and never wanted it to change in the first place.
Because we understand that it has nothing to do with ethnicity, as you stated, that the term Redskin, it's a status symbol of a warrior, has nothing to do with anything else except elite warriors. And even in our DC fight song, Braves on the Warpath, only the most honorable and courageous warriors were permitted to do the blood root ceremony to paint their skin red for battle. So it was an honor symbol, and where in modern warfare you kind of camouflage and want to hide, these guys painted their skin red to let the enemy know, I'm the one, I'm him. So that's why there's so much pride behind the name, and it's certainly behind the imagery, because that's Chief Two Guns White Calf, an absolutely amazing American Indian, and very, very, very famous, but also one of the greatest warriors of all time.
Two Guns White Calf, you couldn't have put it any better there, is an American hero from the Blackfoot tribe, and And he did so much for the causes of Indians/Native Americans. He went to the White House and he got money out of Washington, D.C. And he said he'd rather eat garbage in the streets in D.C. than go home till he got that check into his pocket. And he's the image that was on the side of the Redskins helmet, and of course drawn up by another great Blackfoot Indian, Walter Wetzel, whose son Ryan now is also in the battle here and wants the name Redskins brought back. His grandson, wants the name brought back.
Absolutely. He was honored enough in D.C. When he actually passed. It made headlines across America and around the world. He was such an iconic figure. So I just absolutely cannot, for the life of me, understand how this woke cancel culture can protest so much to the point that they helped topple that. It was the only minority representation in the NFL, in that they're supposedly fighting racism by canceling one of the great Americans ever, one of the greatest Americans ever. That's crazy.
Now, Walter Wetzel was big time. He was a leader of Indian Native American causes back in the day, posing for pictures, going to the White House with Kennedy, John F. Kennedy and Lyndon Johnson. And he was a Washington Redskins fan. And evidently he was watching the game one time, and he said he didn't like that spear on the side of the helmet. He said, well, that's okay, but they need a real Indian on that helmet. So he drew up the picture of Chief Two Guns Whitecalf. He went to D.C. He presented it to Jack Kent Cooke, the owner. Cooke said, I love this. And that became the symbol. And again, Two Guns Whitecalf was so honored and respected. American currency was named after him, the Buffalo nickel. So it's racism to put a hero like that on the side of a helmet. It's ridiculous.
The ridiculousness hasn't ended yet, but I'm glad we're starting to put a dent in it. We're starting to get some common sense back in America. I love it.
Can it happen, the change back to Redskins? I know it seems like Josh Harris and David Blitzer, the owners, are backtracking a little bit and actually considering it and worried about maybe getting the funding for their stadium. Do you think, is it more realistic now than it has been since you started this project?
Absolutely. Like I said, we gained a lot of traction and momentum. In the Josh Harris group, they have an absolutely fantastic opportunity to come out on the right side of this. They have plenty of time to do the right thing. I think they've been reluctant to, because they have not completely divorced themselves from this racist woke cancel culture. They're still pretty concerned about that. But I think if they actually sat down with a member from NAGA or from Sons, they would be able to be educated, and not only would they reinstate the Redskins name and the imagery, they would be able to intelligently defend it. Because right now, I don't think they think that's possible. But if they take the time and sit down to be educated, I know this could come back and would be defended from it ever happening again.
Well, it seems like the only people offended by the Redskins name are white politicians in three-piece suits hanging out in Washington, D.C. And they're trying to get politically correct woke points. I don't think they really care about this issue. They're trying to present themselves as not being racist or something. And but don't you know, Billy, that the Native American people, they aren't intelligent enough to understand that they're being insulted here. They're not smart enough. It takes their great white saviors to, hey, wait a minute. Don't you know you're being insulted here? We'll make the decision for you because you can't figure it out. To me, it's more racist to change the name and saying that Native Americans aren't smart enough to know they're being insulted, so we'll make the decision for them.
That's exactly their attitude in D.C. And I don't think any of them care about it either. They were also following some marching orders from President 44. And there's a lot of, if you trace the money back, you do the money trail here. George Soros and the National, what are they called? The National Congress of American Indian. That is not a pro-Indian group. That is a very, very anti-Indian group. And they put a lot of money toward dismantling this as well. And if you look them up, their imagery is a cartoon of an American Indian with a headdress on, and they're saying the Redskins imagery was racist and hurtful. They're all paid to say it, and they're not the ones filling the seats and buying the merchandise. So I think Josh Harris Group really needs to look a little deeper into what's what.
You know, I'm of Irish ancestry, Billy Dieckman, and I'm insulted and enraged about the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. You look in the sidelines, they got a little leprechaun over there, a little tiny guy in a green suit with pointy shoes on. He's carrying a shillelagh and a green hat, and he's doing somersaults. The only thing that's missing is a bottle of whiskey in his hand. Maybe it's
exactly.
I'm calling for the name change, and I'm thinking of filing a lawsuit on behalf of Irish Americans.
There you go. Well, you know, the NFL, in this name of fighting racism, eradicating Chief Two Guns White Calf and the Redskins name, amazingly, like I said earlier, that's the only we were the only team with minority representation, and they erased it. And then they have absolutely no problem with the NFL Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, well, explain that, why the Bills are more insulting.
Well, they used to be called the Buffalo All-Americans. They chose to change their name to honor Buffalo Bill Cody. And if you look at their imagery, everybody thinks, oh, it's a buffalo, so that's got to be cool to natives. There's a blood stripe coming off that buffalo's horn. So if you look at who they chose to honor with their name change, and you see the blood stripe, that's an absolute slap in the face to all American Indians, especially the Plains Indians.
Wasn't Buffalo Bill Cody responsible for a lot of deaths and murders of Indian people?
Absolutely. His job was to extinguish the food source to starve the Plains Indians out. That's who their team honors, and the NFL has no problem with that.
Well, Walter Wetzel, the man who designed the logo on the side of the helmet, drew it after Chief Two Guns White Calf, and his grandson Ryan Wetzel are all in on this, changing the name back. And I think as well, you got onto message boards and chat rooms with Washington Commanders and former Redskins fans of all colors. All of them, I think they would be so thrilled. They all want the name back. Can you imagine the first game where they're the Redskins again, the electricity that's going to be in that stadium and the pride and the honor? The fans, not only Native Americans, Billy, all Redskins fans want that name back.
All Redskins Nation. There are those, I mean, I don't speak for every Native American or American Indian. I personally prefer to be called Indian. That's how I grew up. I don't like the Native American, a nickname because somebody told me I have to use that because it's politically correct. So I don't speak for all, but I definitely represent the majority. There's always that 10%, and I love that you're actually taking time to do this because generally the media skips over 9 of me to talk to the one whiny, victim-minded guy that says everything offends him and hurts him. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you. But anybody who does 10 minutes of research just on Google or anything understands that Redskin has nothing to do with skin color, and this whole thing is nonsense, and it's a tribute to courage, honor, and bravery on the battlefield, and it was a sacred honor for a warrior to put on that red paint and go out there. Only the bravest warriors got that honor. If you do any research at all, you members of the media, you lazy people out there, politically correct members of the media, Billy, this is pretty easy to figure out.
I believe so too. I think about the Cleveland Indians, and I think they have a fantastic chance of getting their name back when we win this battle. I believe we'll be able to reinstate from grade school level to the pros all the Indian imagery in the history reinstated. Because with the Cleveland Indians, I don't speak for all. Matter of fact, I was on a interview with Jonathan So, that's also a Native American Guardian Association member. He and I were split on Chief Wahoo, and I get and respect that maybe he doesn't care for the imagery. I personally love it, absolutely love it, because I think the Chief Wahoo image is clearly a Redskin, but I believe it was with deep honor that they finally settled on that imagery. And the fact that it's a cartoon, they say, I'm like, well, it's animated. Why are we not allowed to have animation? We're the only race group that our imagery is offensive to others, so it has to be erased. And I was like, I look at, they're like, that's a very bad look for all Native Americans. And I'm like, well, I don't I don't look at Elmer Fudd and say that's what all white people look like. Why can't we not have that imagery, even if it's a cartoon?
Well, I'm glad you brought up the Indians here. And we have Billy Dieckman joins us here on Dave Smith Unleashed, a former United States Marine, a former football player, track and field guy, a stand-up comedian, MMA fighter, done all kinds of things in his life. And now, of course, working with NAGA, Native Americans Guardians Association, and Save Our Native Soul Sons, trying to get the Commanders to change their name back to Redskins and trying to get the Indians to change, the Guardians to change their name back to Indians. And and by the way, I told you about this last time you were on. One of my college roommates was, Native American. That's what they called him on his entry forms in college. And he'd want to take you outside and challenge you to a fist fight if you called him a Native American. He'd always say, "I'm an Indian." And he finally got so upset by it, he said, okay, he invented a new term. He calls himself a pre-American. Don't call me Native American. I'm a pre-American. We were here first. So that's what he calls himself now. Maybe that'll catch on.
I really like that. I like that. Because we Native Americans, American Indians, whatever you want to call us, we're not offended as a whole. We are not sensitive people. We're not victims. So whatever term somebody has to use, fine. Just don't tell me what has to come out of my mouth.
And I didn't know a lot about the history of the Cleveland Indians franchise. And I looked into it when I saw when Donald Trump was talking about changing the name back to Indians. They changed to the Guardians in 2021. They were the Cleveland Spiders all the way up until 1915. And when they were the Spiders, they had a superstar player by the name of Louis Sockalexis, who was from the Penobscot Nation. He was the first Native American to play Major League Baseball, and he was their star. He hit .338 one year. He's a .313 lifetime hitter. He was by far their best player. And the fans loved him so much, they started calling the Spiders the Indians before they officially changed their name because they liked him so much. And then he died in 1913. Then when they got new ownership in 1915, they decided they wanted to change the name from Spiders. And in his honor, they changed the name to the Cleveland Indians. And they called him the Deerfoot of the Diamond because he was so fast. So this was a tremendous honor, changing the name over the first Native American baseball player and a star player in the franchise history. And I get, so it's racist to call them Indians now? It was done in honor of him.
Exactly. And being in Cleveland, they're right there in Jim Thorpe's backyard.
Yes.
The greatest athlete ever.
Besides you and me, right?
Well, true. 5 years ago, maybe.
But it's. What do you think the chances of you're talking about changing back to the Redskins is looking pretty good right now. How about the Indians, the Guardians going back to the Indians? I know Donald Trump was criticizing the owner, Matt Dolan, and he said that's the reason you lost your last 3 elections when he ran for public office. You got to change that name back from Guardians to Indians. And isn't Guardians offensive? Guardians is like the proletariat. That's like people who are standing guard. That's kind of an elitist name, isn't it? Guardians. It's just like the commanders, like people who are commanding others. To me, that's more offensive than Redskins.
Well, the commanders, as it were, those are the people who hunted and killed Indians.
That's right.
So they went from this incredible franchise name of Redskins in a matter of just a couple of years to the generic name, the football team, to Commanders, which is the exact opposite of what that great franchise was founded upon. It's mind-blowing. It's staggering.
And to me, if the Native American Indian tribe members and population are not offended by the term Redskins and don't have a problem with it, neither should the rest of us. I mean, it's none of our business. It's their business. And what would you say? We've seen polls as high as 90%. An Annenberg poll that they polled Native Americans saying that 90% of them are not offended and want the name back to Redskins. What do you think the percentages, like you being a Kiowa Tribe Native American, what do you think the percentages are of natives who want the name Redskins back and who are not offended by it?
Like the polls have said again and again, about 90%. Even the numbers may have even gone a little higher once people heard the actual term, the meaning behind the term and behind the Redskins imagery. I think those numbers even jumped a little bit. But there's always that 10% that are victim-minded and offended by everything. But for whatever reason, their voice is what got carried through. But we're actually being heard now, and the majority is speaking up. So there's a really good chance of us winning this battle.
Fantastic. I hope so. And, it's just, again, to me, it was far more offensive to change the name in the first place, because if 90% of Indian people are not offended and thought the name was, they were honored by the name Redskins, and a bunch of white politicians in three-piece suits in Washington, D.C. saying, well, we're going to change the name whether you like it or not. To me, that's far more offensive.
Yes, that was an orchestrated hit, and it's very offensive that it even had to be that, and that when there's so much else going on. It's like, if you guys have that much time on your hands, why don't you fix some of the problems that are on these government reservations? There's people living like it's a third world country. There's still no running water or electricity on the Navajo Nation.
I told you a funny story last time you were on. I had a girlfriend who was, and she also hated the Native American term. She was Indian, and her family was from Oklahoma. She was living out in L.A. when I met her. we went back to meet the family one time in Oklahoma. She told me we landed in Oklahoma City. It was about a 3-hour drive into the middle of nowhere to where her family was from. And then she said, well, get ready to put your hands up. And what does that mean? She said, well, you're going to have to fight, because they need to know, what if somebody puts their hands on me while they're out? What if I'm threatened? They need to know you can protect me. You can step in and handle your business. So I walked into the house, and she said, you pick out one of my brothers or one of my uncles or cousins or something. Boy, all of them looked like tough guys. They used to go out and do bare knuckle boxing for entertainment out in the backyard. And I'm looking around and I'm saying, well, I'm not going to fight one of the old. You think you pick out one of the old guys, but no, that old man strength. Those are the last guys who want to fight. And they said, maybe an inexperienced young guy, but I looked around the room. I said, I think every one of these guys could kick my ass. I'm in serious trouble here. And they had bare knuckle boxing after dinner out in the backyard.
That sounds like Oklahoma. In one of my comedy routines, I talk about where I'm from in Oklahoma. I'm like, it's a place where even the cheerleaders will fight you.
Yeah. We fly to Oklahoma City. We're about an hour into the car ride, and she tells me you might have to put your hands up. I said, you didn't think to tell me this before we left? That I'm going to have to fight somebody once we get there? And I tell you, the square jaws, these guys have been through it. You could tell square jaws, like scars on their faces. But they looked at me like, okay, white boy, you're going to be in the backyard in a few minutes. We're going to see what you got. You got to be able to protect our daughter here, our cousin, our niece, whatever. If you can't protect her, you ain't welcome here.
That's fantastic.
So are you still doing the stand-up comedy? And I know you're a former Marine and a former football player. You still doing the stand-up comedy now?
I have taken somewhat of a break. This is weird. I don't like to perform in the summer, because I absolutely refuse to wear shorts on stage. And so it gets so blazing hot. But I have a lot of material. I've worked on some new stuff. I will be in a roast battle here in October.
Oh, good.
That'll get things rolling again. So I've been very fortunate. I have a pretty decent following. A lot of my shows have sold out. So it's a matter of just getting a nice group of other comedians that kind of balance out the act together. So we generally want, at least once a year, want to do a tribute to the military. So my next show will be a salute to the veterans.
Fantastic.
And but not just veterans either. First responders. It's a salute to all the heroes that are first responders.
It's funny you mentioned those comics, Billy Dieckman. Remember back in the 80s and 90s, I don't know if you remember, I don't remember his name. He was an Indian guy. He always said, I'm an Indian, not a Native American. He used to be on Carson all the time and all the comedy. He was a really big guy with a long ponytail, and he'd walk back and forth, and like right in the middle of his act, he would always stop and he'd start singing the Missoula song. Missoula corn goodness. Talking about how white people are stealing their culture. Right after a joke, he'd start singing that song all the time. He was really funny. I don't remember his name.
I'm not familiar with him, but I'm certainly going to look it up.
So you put the comedy on pause here, and you're throwing yourself in with NAGA and Save Our Native Souls, SONS, about getting this done, getting the name changed back to Redskins and getting the Guardians name changed back to the Cleveland Indians. So, like you said, you think there's a pretty good chance of this happening. What's it going to take for Josh Harris to actually pull the trigger? Because there in D.C. there's a lot of forces that are going to be working against him on this and who don't want him to do it. Does he have the courage and does he have the spine and the backbone to do what's right and change the name back to the Washington Redskins?
I'm sure hoping so. That's what it's going to take. And granted, maybe our voice isn't going to be heard because, he's definitely aware of NAGA, but I don't think he takes us very seriously right now or so far. But I think he's starting to realize, okay, this is a force to reckon with, because thank goodness there's a lot of other pressure besides just us reaching out to him, because we would like to have a seat at the table and just to be able to educate him, because that would make the difference.
And before we let you go here, and I appreciate your time, Billy, Billy Dieckman of NAGA, Native American Guardians Association, and Save Our Native Souls, the Sons, leading the charge here, trying to get the Commanders to change their name back to Redskins and the Guardians to change their name back to Indians. And he's a Native American himself, being of the Kiowa Tribe, and a former Marine veteran, a stand-up comedian, a former mixed martial arts fighter. So what can those of us out here do who want to get involved and want to help you and spread the word about that Redskins is not a racist term and that you guys are on the right track here? What can people out here do to help you?
Well, social media certainly spreads the word quickly and far and wide. The Native American Guardian Association has a Facebook page. Anybody can look it up. The donation section is always helpful to help keep us in the air and being able to travel, because it's not just about Redskins. It's about restoring Native history, imagery, and themes across the nation at every level.
And I know, Ryan Wetzel, the grandson of the great Walter Blackie Wetzel, who drew the original symbol on the side of the Redskins helmet, and a Blackfoot tribe member himself, are all on board with this. And what about the family of Two Guns White Calf? Are you in touch with them, and do they want the Redskins name back?
Very much so. I'm great friends on Facebook with Chris Whitecalf. We talk back and forth a lot. He's the 2-time or 3-time great grandson of Chief John Two Guns.
Wow.
So the Whitecalf family is very, very much involved with this, and they want everything back. They want the name, they want the imagery, they want the history all reinstated. Any opposition they've dealt with has been more or less the paid actors that are saying it's racist and it's harmful. So they're fighting the same fight we're fighting. And I'm so glad to be a part, shoulder to shoulder with a great family like that.
But Chief Two Guns White Calf, again, we talked about earlier, what a great American. He had currency named after him, the Buffalo Nickel, and the Blackfeet tribe was owed a lot of money by the government back in the 30s. So he went back to the White House and he got a conference with the president, and then some of the underlings walked in and said, "Well, we'll send you a check. Don't worry about it. We haven't forgot about you." And he said, "No, I'm not leaving this office. I'll sleep in the streets and eat garbage before I leave this city, and I'll be damned." The next day, he got his check. This is a guy who got things done.
That's fantastic. I kind of deal with a little bit of that from the VA. I'm like, hey, I'm not leaving until I get my sleeping meds.
Yeah, my dad was a World War II veteran, and he used to always say, like veterans would always say, delay, deny, let them die. That's how they describe the VA.
The VA has actually gotten a lot better over the years.
Yes.
Thank you to President Trump. He got a lot of stuff rolling there. So it's been better, and I can't complain. They take good care of me.
Well, everybody go to the NAGA Facebook page and website, NAGA, Native American Guardians Association. Also support Save Our Native Soul Sons, and of course, and give a great thank you to Billy Dieckman, our guest here, the former Marine, the former mixed martial arts fighter, the stand-up comedian. We always love having you on, Billy. I know we're out of time here, but I appreciate you doing this again, and we got to have you on again soon as this thing progresses, and hopefully next time the name will be officially changed back to the Great Washington Redskins.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dave. I appreciate you.
There he goes, the great Billy Dieckman on Dave Smith Unleashed. And of course, if you want to know when Dave Smith Unleashed is going to be on, you want to follow me, make sure you go to my Twitter page, @DaveSportsGod, @DaveSportsGod, and make sure you follow us on YouTube. So give us a follow, give us a subscribe, give us a like, and of course, always give us a share as we continue to grow the Dave Smith Unleashed podcast. So we'll talk to you next time right here on Dave Smith Unleashed.